Hey everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. This is the Obscure Book Report, and my name is Knial Piper. I wrote a book a while back, about a year ago, called Freedom Blues, An American Soul. There it is. A phenomenal book dealing with Milo Harrison, who is on a ride to Key West, Florida. He's picked up by none other than the devil, who is collecting souls of individuals who had sold their soul for different things like money, glory, beauty, fame. And the time's come. The devil's here to collect his dues. So check that out on Amazon, on Books A Million, really anywhere books are sold. Freedom Blues, An American Soul. But currently, I'm working on this new book, The Demonic Virtue. This really is the best thing I have ever done. Best thing. The Demonic Virtue. This book will blow you away. It stays in the same universe, but it deals with the essential character, the devil, and his journey through everything. I'm talking the Big Bang. I'm talking future robots. From the beginning of time to the end of time, outside time, his whole experience through everything and his battle with the creator. Phenomenal book. I encourage you to go check that out. We actually, on this show afterwards, every Sunday, we do one chapter. This week, you're going to get to hear two chapters. Chapter 6 and 7 of The Demonic Virtue. So look for that on YouTube. It's free. See if you like it. All right. The Obscure Book Report. So we go over several different segments. Our first segment is the Obscure Book of the Week. This Obscure Book of the Week is Otherside by Alfred Kubin. Alfred Kubin. Who is Alfred Kubin? Alfred Kubin is an Austria. He's from Austria, and he is an illustrator. He actually wrote one book, and it was this book. He is a weird-looking guy. He was friends with Edgar Allan Poe. He actually illustrated things for Edgar Allan Poe. When he was 11, he was touched by his mother, by a babysitter. And that really messed him up in the head. This babysitter molested him. And one of the quotes he's famous for saying is, "The Deramuge is a hybrid." That means the Demamuge is a hybrid, which is, the creator character is both male and female, a hybrid. He really got into this because he was struggling with the idea of God, with being molested when he was younger. His father was kind of a tyrant and beat him, and his mother, she died at a young age. This really fucked with his head, and he wanted to kill himself. He actually went to a graveyard, put a revolver to his head at his mother's grave, pulled the trigger, but the revolver was so rusted that it didn't pull, it didn't shoot, and he tried to do it again, but he just didn't have the guts to pull. That's why he said, "I was a coward and I couldn't pull the trigger one more time." So he didn't end up killing himself. He instead channeled his frustrations, anxieties, and angers into illustration. And we're going to get into his illustrations. We've got some of his illustrations, and they are creepy. So, at the age of 20, he has a nervous breakdown. He tried to kill himself at 19. Now he's having a nervous breakdown. And this is pre-World War I. So, this is when things are starting to get bad in Europe. He lives in Austria, so he's in Europe, but, he's thinking, wow, things are not getting good. I'm illustrating this. You can just see this in a lot of art at this time, but his particular was very disturbing. His dad dies around this time, and it triggers him to write this book. Like I said, this is his only book, and it gains cult status. So before this, who is Alfred Kubin? Alfred Kubin is illustrating for Edgar Allan Poe. And I think we have a picture of that when he wrote it in Munich. He drew these pictures in Munich in 1907, the year before this book was published. He also, when he developed this book, it essentially inspired Gustav Meyernich's The Golem, which is an awesome book. And it inspired Kafka, like Franz Kafka, to write That's a big thing, metamorphosis, but it inspired him particularly to write The Castle, which is an amazing book, and I also think you should go out and find that book. It inspired Leonora Carrington and Angela Carter to write The War of Dreams. Interesting book, kind of on the same capital as this is, but it's also known as this is a cool title, The Inferior Desire Machine of Dr. Hoffman. What a dope title for a book. His subconscious is what kind of led him to write. He used it as a type of therapy to deal with the things that were going on at this time. He used this to heal himself, and it worked. This was a type of therapy, and it helped him heal himself through his writings and illustrations. And so this is where we're going to start out. This is one of his illustrations. You can tell it's pretty kind of wicked in both senses of the term. In this particular novel, he has over 50 drawings, little pen drawings. So book makes cult status. It's his only book. This book actually inspired Red Hot Chili Peppers to write their song, The Other Side. The other side. And you can just see this in the music video. I encourage you to go look at the Red Hot Chili Peppers music video, The Other Side, and you will see just kind of how twisted and almost anxiety filled it is. It feels like you're in one of his drawings. And they have noted, Anthony Kiedis noted, saying, yes, this inspired us to do this music video. So that's The Other Side. What's this book about? All right, The Other Side. It deals with a man, unnamed man, and his wife. And they're just living regular lives, and then they get asked one day by their old friend Klaus Pantera to come visit this city. There's a picture of the city, what it looks like from the top that's provided in the book. They go to the city. His wife's pretty hesitant. She's like, I don't really want to go to the city. But he said, no, come on. We got to check out the city. So they go. She gets this feeling of dread the minute they walk in. This is clear foreshadowing. She soon gets sick, and she dies. So literally when he's there in the start, she dies. But at this time, he has realized this is a city of dreams. This is the dream kingdom. Its name, Pearl. There's the city, Pearl. And literally whatever you dream, you can make come true. You can cook by believing it into existence. Phenomenal city, full of marvelous and fantastic things, but when his wife dies, it's soon full of nightmares. Suddenly everything changes. He notices these people are on some kind of spell, and he can't ever actually go meet his schoolmate who invited him here, Klaus Pantera, who is the ruler of this kingdom. It's gray and cloudy all the time. You can see that portrayed in the front cover of the translated version by Mike Mitchell. And so the city just goes wild. City of dreams on nightmares. And the nightmares are illustrated fully. There's a lot of what the fuck moments. There's people that worship a clock, and there's some weird shit they do. There's also something in the well. There's a well, and there's somebody down there, and they're shouting and crying, and then there's doppelgangers. There is just kind of at the end, there's a book of Revelations ending where there's horrific deaths. There's buildings crumbling and ghosts, and I think we have some pictures of all of that. Some of just the sick drawings that he has. It's just, so that's his wife dead underneath this golem character. There's more, isn't there? There's another one. We have another picture. Yeah. So this is what's going on in his nightmares. His reality has become this world that lives off dreams, and his subconscious is feeding it. And illustrations are amazing. The book is amazing. I say that if you come across this book, Albert Kubin's, just blanking on it now. Albert Kubin's The Other Side. Go check this out. Be ready to be prepared. This is a eerie masterpiece of photo or proto-surrealism. So before surrealism was a thing, this thing was there. And he kind of laid the groundwork for this. And obviously, we know this precipitated the world wars, and you get a kind of a feeling for what it was like there. And apparently, to Alfred Kubin, it was some shit like that. So I say, if you find this, go read it. I don't know if I would seek it out. It's got quality, it's got clarity, it's got strangeness. There's a healthy dose of absurdism and graphic violence. Some intense shit happening there. There's Klaus Pierce, the ruler of this kingdom that constantly changes forms and he can't ever come to meet. But in the end, he does leave this place, and, we're provided with some themes. Some of the themes, I think, were race, media, psychoanalysis, religion, particularly Gnosticism, and death, sexuality, obviously. He's doing this to write therapy. He was molested when he was a kid, but ultimately dualism. I think you'll also find in my book a healthy theme of dualism, the whole Tao. But the only thing I had trouble with this book was that a lot of questions weren't answered for me. How did Klaus Patera get into handling all of this? How did he get these telepathic ability to control these people in the Dream Kingdom Pearl? And why is the city always dull and gray? And who decided that the buildings in this should be represented by traumas? You can see that's clearly what's going on, but none of these questions are answered. But I guess that's dreams for you. You don't always get a clear-cut answer. That's the other side. If you want to take a trip to the other side, go check this out. Alfred Kubin, 1909, The Other Side. Inspired Edgar Allan Poe and Franz Kafka. It's got to mean something. So that's our obscure book of the week. And now we get into Goodreads. This is the second segment on the Obscure Book Report. Goodreads. We just pick a book, preferably an obscure book, that we think's pretty dope. This week, we're talking about The Pentagon's Brain. Subtitle: An Uncensored History of DARPA, America's Top Secret Military Research Agency. This was written by Annie Jacobson. Now, Annie Jacobson is a phenomenal writer, and particularly phenomenal in the sense of research and investigation. She was the editor of the LA Times magazine from 2009 to 2012. That's a big deal. She knows her shit. It got her into this line of work, and she's written a slew of books, which are phenomenal. 2005, she wrote Terror in the Skies, Why 9/11 Could Happen Again. 2011, she wrote Area 51, An Uncensored History of America's Top Secret Military Base. 2014's Operation Paperclip, the secret intelligence program that brought Nazi scientists to America. And I think the one that sounds the most interesting outside of DARPA is 2017's her most recent Phenomenon, the secret history of the U.S. government investigations into extrasensory perception and psychokinesis. That sounds killer. But the book we're talking about today is 2015's The Pentagon's Brain, An Uncensored History of DARPA, America's Top Secret Military Research Base. This was cool. I didn't quite know a whole lot about DARPA. I think it stands for Defense Army Research Program Agency. I don't really remember, but what they do is they develop things and they come up with ideas and they try to help America. They literally created the nuclear bomb, which is kind of when they were started, and then the M16. And she does the research. She goes through this and she covers all aspects of DARPA. DARPA, like if we have robots in the future, which they are working on this, if we have robots in the future like Terminator, they're coming from DARPA. Like DARPA created them. Three of the things that I found really cool in this book. Alpha Dog. I think we have a picture of Alpha Dog, but there's Alpha Dog and there's Bravo Dog, and these things are being used right now by Marines. Four-legged creatures that can carry up to 400 pounds. And, that takes the weight off a soldier, or it gives them the ability to bring more into the field. But you can find videos of these things, but you can kick them over and they'll steady themselves. They I think they should have like guns on them, but I guess they're not to that point yet. These things are scary intense. Actually, in this book, it talks about DARPA tried to create artificial intelligence. They failed at what they thought they wanted for artificial intelligence, and they sold the idea to a little company called Apple. Apple created Siri. That's where Siri comes from. DARPA, thank you. Mutations, she talks about mutations in this book. There's cells called mutagens, which can mutate, and they studied salamanders. A lot of this, like the helicopter and all that, they're studying how dragonflies move and all this, so they're studying salamanders. And a salamander will lose its tail and then grow this back. They're thinking, how could we utilize this weird DNA trick, cellular mutagens for soldiers who have lost limbs? They're looking into all of this right now. They're so secretive that we don't quite know how far they've gotten with it. But all of this sounds like really crazy, but then again, cloning sound crazy at one time and flying sound crazy before that. We can do both of those fairly easy now. They also think about controlling animals. Like next time you see a pigeon outside your window, just take this into instance. They have microchips they put in mice brains, bug brains, pigeon brains, and then cameras they can install into their eyes. Yes, they can do all of this, and they are doing it. And you can control which way this mouse looks, which way it goes, what the pigeon is doing, how it flies. And kind of the concept behind it is that, what if we got a June bug and we filled it with like a deadly toxin and we flew it into a terrorist cell, put it in front of like Osama bin Laden's face and blew it up? And then killed him on the spot. Super easy, super creative, super effective. DARPA. She goes over the entire history. So thank you, Annie Jacobson. That's our good read of the week. Banned book of the week. The banned book of the week is 2012. More banned than what other books were out then? 50 Shades of Grey. More banned than 50 Shades of Grey was Captain Underpants by Dave Pinkley. Yes, Captain Underpants. Guy, two little fun-loving kids, they trick this principal and they get him turned into a superhero. He's a mean old Mr. Crump principal, and they turn him into Captain Underpants, who goes around the world fighting bad and evil in his underwear. But this book was more banned than 50 Shades of Grey in 2012, the #1 most banned book, which kind of makes sense if you think about it, because you have a child's book and you have an adult's book, but in the child's book, the books there are going to get banned because we're more strict about what our children are viewing in America. Captain Underpants, this book inspired me to draw. When I read this, I thought it was the coolest thing about how they go through and you can flip pages and make stop action and just the creative things that these two little hoodlum boys were doing. Well, a lot of people didn't like this. They talk about the offensive language, the partial nudity, the misbehavior, the blackmail, and bullying, and they say, we want to ban this. They actually filed complaints at the Office of Intellectual Freedom. They said, offensive language in Chapter 4, particularly George and Harold, the two characters, they refer to the school principal, Captain Underpants, Mr. Crump, as mean old Mr. Crump, and that old guy. So there's our first dose of Captain Underpants. In this, the next chapter, we have, or even in that chapter, just kind of making fun of people for not liking this. They say, Sturgeon General's warning that says, some material in this book may be considered offensive by people that don't wear underwear. It was almost kind of a slap on the face. Partial nudity. In chapter 17, he's shooting he's shooting like a diaper, he's shooting underwear at Dr. Diaper, and he's left naked, and he has to wear a barrel, and you do see butts in this. So there is partial nudity. But the violence, in chapter 15, they titled it the extremely graphic violence chapter. George and Harold save each other from evil robots by whacking and presumably killing them. So they're like hitting these robots with wooden planks to kill them. It gives you the warning. You can read it there. Warning, following chapter contains graphic violence, blah, blah, blah. If you have high blood pressure or if you might faint at the sight of motor oil, slap in the face, we strongly urge you to take better care of yourself and stop being such a baby. I kind of like Dave Pinkley. They also talk about misbehavior and pranks. There's a lot of pranks. I actually wrote Dave Pinkley. I have a lot of time on my hands, I guess, because I write a lot of celebrities. But Dave Pinkley is one of the only celebrities that wrote me back. And he said, when I was like 11 years old, and he gave me all these pranks to pull. One of those pranks was, that classic trick where you have a quarter in your chin and you have to drop it into a funnel, and then you show your friend, you're like, hey, try this. And then they try it, and you dump water into the funnel, because it's in their pants and it makes them look like they pissed themselves. I thought that was so funny. And I was so inspired by this guy. He actually, to some degree, inspired me to write, but definitely to draw. Dave Pinkley is the author of the Band Book of the Week, Captain Underpants, 2012. It's a 10-part series. Let your kids read it, It inspires them to do shit. It inspires them to read. Band Book of the Week. The obscure things. We're going to pick one topic for obscure things this week. And this is a personal favorite. This is almost kind of a vendetta against the people that said it didn't happen. But also kind of a realization from me that maybe it didn't happen. We're talking about Dark Side of Oz. Yeah, man, if you play Dark Side of the Moon with Wizard of Oz, dude, it goes together. Like it fits together. Well, I thought it did. And a lot of other people do. The lyrics, the song titles, the theme, the just little actions. Like Dorothy will be running away, and it says, running away. A moment to make up the dull day. And then you see the day, and there's so many things in this that cannot just be coincidental. But the band has come out and said, this is a bunch of eyewash. I think you should go check it out. So what you do is you start the album at the opening. So the third lion roar. Some people say it's first, some people say the second. Really, you can kind of get a generally good feel for how this works. It's called movie sync, synchronicity, movie sync, how it feels when you start on the third one. And they're not the only ones to do it. Pink Floyd does it for every album. Not just every album, but every singular album. When they broke up, Nick Mason and Roger Waters and David Gilmour, they all have their own albums that sync up. And there's certain sites that provide this. But they're asking, how would this work? How could somebody do this? Well, whenever Pink Floyd first started shooting, they would have a kaleidoscope, and they would put it on the wall through a projector, and then they would play to it. That's kind of how they learned to start getting their groove on. I think they did it on purpose, and I think they're kind of driving up the conspiracy behind it by denying it. But, how else could this work? I'm going to get into that in a second. People say that they got the idea from the Beatles. The Beatles did this first, and he gets into, there's a website, Andrew Winland, on moviesyncs.com. He gets into this, and he describes every artist that does it, goes through the history. It's just phenomenal research and a great resource for movie syncs. But the Beatles were supposedly the first ones that did it, and they inspired Pink Floyd to do it. And then Dark Side of the Moon was found out in Fort Wayne, in 1996. It was the first one that was discovered and kind of made headlines. So then we got other bands, Radiohead, Flaming Lips, Alan Parsons, and Pink Floyd. We got tons of bands. But I really got into it, like I do everything. I really got into it, and if you look there on the website, I found one of the syncs. I've been listening. I'm ready for Paul McCartney's new album, but Paul McCartney's Memory Almost Full 2007 and The Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Those two movies go together. And you can see my name right there. Boom. But that was kind of an accomplishment of mine. Some people say, nope, none of this is all coincidences. You've seen the dancing Spider-Man that goes to any song. It's kind of like that on YouTube. It's hidden messages. It is the confirmation bias. You're looking for something, and you're gonna figure out a way to make it happen. The human mind works in patterns, patternicity, agenicity, and just pure coincidence. And the phenomenon is called apophenia. I think I'm saying that right, but you look for it to happen, and you make it happen in your mind. The human mind is just dead set to patterns. That's how we figured out the stars. That's how we figure out everything, patterns. So some people say it's not it's a coincidence. It's a pattern. You're looking for it. I say, who cares? Go check it out. Dark Side of Oz. Classic conspiracy. On the topic of conspiracies, we're going to talk about the classic conspiracy. We take a classic book, classic story, and we take just a topic. handed to us by you. This week's topic was rain. Max Pretty, thank you. I didn't quite see any conspiracy with just rain. You know, I do believe the government has machines to make it rain. Maybe not. But rain. There's a song by the Beatles called Rain. You know that song? It's like, if the rain comes, they run and hide their heads. They might as well be dead when the rain comes. Yeah, that one. They've even got a backwards playing song at the end of it. But that's not really the conspiracy. The conspiracy I see, it's almost not even conspiracy, but just a cool little fact, is that Ray Bradbury wrote All Summer in a Day in 1954. This was made after that in 1969. And All Summer in the Day is a wild story. Almost very kind of depressing. But these kids, they live in Venus. This was before Mariner 2 went to Venus and learned, you know, we could not live on Venus. But these kids live on Venus and they go to school there. And Margaret is just a new girl. She just came from Earth and she's only been there for 5 years. But she soon realizes about this weird phenomenon that it does not rain on Mars for 7 years. They don't get to see... I mean, it does rain for 7 years. They don't get to see the sunshine for 7 years. Once every 7 years for like a few hours. These kids are all dying to see the rain or see the sunshine. You know, that kind of goes to lyrics, you know, when the sun shines, they slip into the shade. They slip the lemonade when the sun shines. All the lyrics in this were created from this book. Or short story, All Summer in a Day. Well, poor little Margaret, she gets pushed into a closet by William, this little mean bully kid. They lock the door on her, and all the kids are making fun of Margaret because she's seen the sun before. She just got back from Earth like 5 years ago. But as they're all laughing at her locked in the closet, they see outside, and it stops raining. They go outside and they're just sunshine. They're running through the fields. Ah, man, this is just awesome. Venus, and it's sunny. And for some reason, there's plants on Venus. We really didn't know a lot of about Venus whenever this was written, but they're all enjoying it. And then one of the kids notices, it's all over, man. It's starting to rain again. They realize they left Margaret in the closet the whole time. You know, the Beatles talk about this when they created the song Rain. And they say, you know, they run and hide their heads. They might as well be dead. Poor Margaret. She missed all of that. Ray Bradbury wrote this book right before he wrote Fahrenheit 451, or this short story. There was even a movie made about this, and it's a clever little movie. But actually, William, the bully, is played by Keith Coogan. Interesting fact, who is the son of Jackie Coogan, who was the son in the original Charlie Chaplin movie, The Kid. And he was also Uncle Fester in the Addams Family movie and series. So that's the conspiracy. The Beatles and rain. I love Ray Bradbury. I think he is a great writer. Well, that's kind of our experience for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. Next week, we're gonna get Hugo up in this shit. We're gonna go to Shambhala. This is a crazy book. I cannot wait to tell you about this. Shambhala. Until then, I hope you enjoy your week. I hope you tune in next Sunday. I hope you also listen in and tune in for my audio chapter 6 and 7 of the Demonic Virtue tonight. And like you get to see where Adderford, you know, the devil, where he's at in his journey. I think he just got done with the Big Bang, but yeah. Chapter 6 and 7 tonight, The Demonic Virtue. I am the writer of Freedom Blues and American Soul. And this is Herald Broadcasting Services for making this possible. Until next time, we're out. The Obscure Book Report. See you later.